Hello.
Hello, Hailey. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am great.
Wonderful. I'm so excited for today. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I am. I talk to my clients all the time about, I might have said this to you, about the importance of having a strong story. And so I love that you're going to be talking about this and kind of educating.
Hey.
Yeah. Um,
Yes, I love this too.
so a couple things. One, I realized that this was not getting pushed out to our audience. We have a breakdown in our Circle app.
It's okay.
So I have one person in the waiting room right now, but we are recording it. So it'll go out to everyone because I know that they'll,
Okay.
again, we talk about this all the time. Um, but you tell me, how do you want this to go down? Is this more of an interview? Do you have a presentation? How do you want this to flow?
So typically what I like to do is I have a slideshow, but it helps me. So
Yeah.
so for the first part of it, I like to do like insights teaching, but then the last half I love to do just like live copy reviews. So if anyone in the group wants to share their copy with me and I can dive in and make suggestions, recommendations, and whether that's on their story or if they just have a sales page that they want to have better conversions, I'm happy to help jump in on that because I find that's kind of like where the most valuable stuff is just showing those real live examples. So if that's okay with you, that's really how I like to kind of work that.
I love it. Okay. So I'm going to message them in the waiting room so that they're thinking about that.
Okay, perfect.
Um,
And then if it is just a couple of people, do you still want me to do the presentation or do you want me to have it more conversational? Because I can do either.
I think the presentation is good because people
Okay,
want to watch it after.
perfect. Okay.
Yeah. So I think that's good.
Okay.
The heck? This isn't letting me. It's all right. When they come on, we'll
No,
get
that's
to
okay.
them. All right. So do you want to test your
I was just
you
pulling
should
it
have
up.
access to everything, but if you want to test it, we can do that.
Whoops, nope, just one second here.
Mhm.
I hate when everything's like on my big screen, but I want it to be over here. Okay, nope, it looks like it's allowing me to share my screen, so all should be good.
Okay. Cool. So I am going to let these ladies in.
Perfect.
Oh, my screens. Hello, Sally.
How are you?
Good. Lovely to see you. And then we have Stacy Joe hopping on. I was just telling Hailey how I'm always talking to you guys about story, like the importance of our copy of our story, right? And bringing that in. Stacy Joe, how many times have I told you, Stacy, that your story is the whole brand? It's like so important with everything you're doing, right? You're on mute, Stace.
I know you do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's hard to I guess believe that, but yes, you do say that often.
And so that when I met Hailey through Laura. Remember Laura Wright did the sales copy or the sales presentation? So they work together. And so when I met Hailey, I'm like, oh, she needs to come on because this is such an important factor especially for the type of businesses, well, for any type of business, but especially for what we have going on. And so it just was kind of a natural fit. And here is Kristen. I'm going to do my formal presentation, or my formal intro, and then I'm going to kick it off to you, Hailey. You ready?
I am ready.
Okay, great. We are here with an amazing woman who helps businesses transform how they market with kind of this underlying factor that is so critical for all of us. And it's about our story. What is the story of your brand? So we have Hailey Krajewski with us. She is the CEO of Copy Shift, and she's also a certified a certified conversion copywriter. She is seasoned. She knows her stuff. And that's why we have her with us. So join me in welcoming Hailey to our Fuel the Fire group. Hailey, it's so great to have you here.
Yes, well, thank you. I am so excited to be here and talk about story and all the things. And towards the end, I just want to kind of put this up front, like you will all have the chance to share your copy with me so that if you have any questions or want my live recommendations and feedback, I always like to do that at the end of my presentations because I think sometimes that's where like the real gold and the real ahas come from. So just wanted to throw that out there.
That's why we show up, right?
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Perfect. All right. Well, is that okay if I go ahead and get started?
Please do.
All right. Wonderful. Okay.
Well,
So
real quick. So while she's getting ready for that, Jill, I know you just hopped on. If you have a sales page, if you have some kind of sales copy that you want Hailey to look at, get that ready. And Hailey will do some hot seat stuff for us. So, okay, Hailey, you're on.
yes, perfect. And just one more note to that. It doesn't have to be about story. I know we're talking about story today, but if it's just like Midori said, if it's a sales page, an email sequence, just your website copy, anything like that, I'm happy to review and we can chat through that. So with that, I have a little presentation kind of set up for you. It just helps me stay on track and not kind of squirrel over here on what we're talking about. But feel free at any time to ask questions, raise your hand, put stuff in the chat. I'll try to follow along as I can. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, and can everybody see this? Okay. All right, so if I'm looking over here, it's because it's on my second screen, but I'm sharing it with you here. So just know that I'm not just looking off into space over here. All right, well, all about today, what we are going to do is be talking about how to tell your story in a way that captures and converts. So like Midori said, I am a conversion copywriter, and so I help women not only tell their story, but tell it in a way that really captures those leads you have coming in and then converts them into paying clients. And so I always say that good copy has the power to sell anything. It's about using your words and using them for good. But when you learn the secret to writing good copy, it allows you to just really connect on a deeper level with your audience. It builds that know, like, and trust factor so much faster. And our ultimate goal is to have them think like, are you in my head? How did you know that? Or like, that's exactly how I'm feeling. So that is the whole goal in any time you write copy. And I always say that you can be your own best spokesperson. So without having to hire a copywriter or someone to come in and do your content, you're the person that can tell your story best because you've lived that story. It's all about just understanding how to articulate that story in a way that really resonates with your audience. And so that's what I'm going to kind of help share today, is how to tell a story, but where you should have story included, how to help kind of get that started for you, because a lot of times it's like, well, what am I even supposed to talk about? Or what stories can I tell? Or where should I put them? So I'm going to help with that today. And then, like I said, at the end, we'll kind of go through and talk about anything that you need my help on. So number one, I just want to talk about why story is important. So I know, as Midori said before, she talks a lot about like, we have to tell our story, because there's so many times that you might be offering the same service that someone else is offering, but how are you different? Why are you better? Why, what makes you unique and stand out? And a lot of times that comes out in our stories. So 3 reasons why story sells is subconsciously, as humans, like, we are wired to want to close a loop. And a lot of times story creates that curiosity and it makes us want to keep going, keep reading. Or stories have conflict, they have risk, they have that adventure. So it just really kind of like, it gets us to stick subconsciously. Like, we don't even know what's happening, but when somebody tells a story, we're just instantly connected. And that kind of leads in number 2, we remember it. It sticks. So rather than telling like facts and figures and things that you can also include, people are going to remember your story more than they remembered those specific facts, because story is so much more engaging. It connects on that emotional level. And a lot of times I say that people don't buy based on logic alone, they buy based on emotion. And so for many entrepreneurs, service providers, women like us, people are buying the experience of working with you. They're buying the experience of what you're doing, how you're showing up, how you're serving them. So I think that's so important to remember. And then stories are universal. Everyone loves a good story. No one's going to be like, I don't want to hear a story from you. Again, as long as it's relevant, it makes sense and it's good. So it's just how we're wired. And so that kind of goes in and like, where should you use story? I realize I just forgot a word there in that headline, which is okay. But my advice is like, wherever you give advice, you teach something, you explain something, you can use story. Your website, your long form sales pages, your weekly newsletter, pieces of your welcome sequence, like these are all places that you can insert story. And I don't mean that you have to have like the beginning, middle, and end of the story in all of these, but you're still kind of looping them and you're connecting them with a piece of your story. And I will give examples towards the end too on all of this and how it can show up. So just know that I will provide examples for you as we get to the end here. But also note that the story can be about you, it can be about your client. But the goal of it is to make your client the hero of the story, or your audience the hero, and you're the guide that's getting them to their desired result. So rather than you being the hero in the story, they are the hero and we are the guide getting to them to where they want to be. Again, I'll show some examples of this too. I think some people that I follow that do a really great job at explaining this, or even books, and I actually have it right here on my desk because I use it quite a bit. Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's pretty well known, so most of you have, but I love all of his books. He also just came out with a coach builder. So if any of you are coaches, that's a really great just resource to have. That book too. I just ordered it on Amazon, so it should be here soon. But love that. And then another one is the story factor. So I don't know if anyone likes books. I love books, but I think story is so huge. And because I'm doing writing every single day, I love to just keep reading and learning. But this is by Annette Simmons. So a couple of good resources that I have on my desk that I wanted to share with you. And also just knowing what stories to be able to tell. So we'll get to that too. But where do you find the ideas for your story? So there's a couple different ways that you can do this, and it really just depends on like your personality and how you work best. For me, a lot of times I get my ideas when I go out on a walk. And so I have my phone with me and I just voice note into my phone, or I put it in my notes so that I can come back to it time and time again. I have a doc where I keep all of my story ideas, because then it helps me when I come to write an email or write a sales page or update website copy, or even do things like this. I just have that bank of stories. And a good way that I kind of work with my clients and tell them what to do is to take an hour, sit down, and these questions can be used as prompts. And I can send these to Midori if you want to put them in the community or whatnot. But sometimes these are good prompts to just get you thinking of like, what do I even say? How do I even do this? Like, I have 4 little boys, so a lot of times like my stories about like the crazy things they do and say, and then it like somehow relates back to my business or to helping my clients. So I think the important thing is that you have these stories and then you find the way how they relate back to what it is you do and the problem that you solve for your clients. So that we're not just over here telling some random stories and talking about random things, but that we kind of relate it back to the main point that we're talking about. So especially like for an email newsletter, I always don't tell, again, the full story, the beginning, middle, and end, but I start with a little piece of it, incorporate the story, and then incorporate my main point in there, because I feel that every email, like for new weekly newsletters, I always say have one core common idea. Keep it simple, but keep everything focused on one idea so that you're not confusing your people. They'll know what you're talking about, where you want them to go. It's really just having that singular focus. So story helps to do that too. And it helps to like pull them in and connect with them. And if you ever do hire a copywriter, having a story bank is pure gold because it allows people like me or your copywriter to get inside of your head, to learn your voice, to learn who you are, to be able to show up and help you tell that story in a really powerful way too. So whether you save it on a Google Doc or notes on your phone or however works best for you, just having that so you can come back to it time and time again. Okay, then going into what stories should you always have? I always say to have like at least 3 stories at your disposal. So when you're at a networking event, when you're giving a presentation, when you're writing something, you have 3 stories that you always have in your pocket. So the story of how you got started and doing what you do. I think the important thing for this part of the story is how you got started. Doing what you do is really including not just kind of like well, here's what I did, and then I moved to this, and then I did that, and now I'm doing this, but more about what was the transformation? What were like the big decisions that you had to make to get where you are today? What was like a pivotal moment that helped you transition into doing what you're doing? So just think of it in a story like that, where it's focused more on that conversion and how you kind of had that realization and moved to where you are. So there's a way to like make it really powerful. And then the aha moment story is kind of going back to that same thing, but a little bit different. This is that aha moment when you realized how you are helping your clients and why you're doing what you're doing. So we'll talk about this in a little bit, but oftentimes when I work with my clients, we find that one specific problem they solve. Now, you might solve a whole bunch of problems for your people, but the more that we hone in on that big problem that we solve, the more powerful it's going to be. And so when did you come to that like aha moment? Like, this is what I saw people needed help with, and here's how I'm helping them do it. And then that last one is to always have a transformational story of a client in your pocket to be able to use. So whether that's a testimonial or a case study, but kind of showing where they were to where they are now and how you helped them get there. That's going to be really powerful. So kind of your origin story, how you got started, that aha moment, that pivotal time, and then your transformational, your client success story.
And Hailey, just to add on to that, because I know all of my the women who are here, they do podcasting. So if you have these 3 stories, this is perfect for when you're being interviewed as well. Right?
Yeah.
Kristen and Jill were just on my show. And so these were kind of the questions that come up. So I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Yes, no, definitely. It's so perfect, like stuff like that, because then the more you tell it over and over again, the better and more powerful it becomes. And I think people can take, even if someone, listens to all of your podcasts and you tell the stories, maybe you have a couple different origin stories that you use, or you use the same one, people are going to get new nuggets of information or new nuggets of gold every time you tell that story. I know there's people that I follow, and if they're interviewed on another podcast, I listen to it and they tell the same story, but always take a different piece of, like, I always take a different lesson, or I find something that I knew that I can learn in the way that they're telling their story. And sometimes I even just focus on like how they're telling their story so I can get better at it for myself and for my clients. I love that. Thank you, Midori. And I kept this in here. It's a slide I have in a lot of my things, but a lot of times people say, you know, I know I'm a good writer. It's just hard. So sometimes it's just being taught again and understanding how to write a good story. And another thing I heard was like, we have to unlearn a lot of rules that maybe we learned in English class or like what professional writing is supposed to be. Because sometimes when my clients get my Google Docs, it's like, if you have Grammarly, it's going to hate it. It's not going to like, it's not going to like this copy because it's not always grammatically correct. We're using slang, or, you know, you're having sentences that start with and, or we're having that correct. It's just making it sound more conversational, because the more conversational you sound, the more relational it's going to come across better. It's going to connect and engage. Oopsies, where did I go here? It's going to engage more with your people. So I just wanted to keep that in there for you. And I just love this quote because it says, a brand is no longer what we tell the consumer it is, it's what consumers tell each other it is. So that if we don't tell our story, others are going to tell it for us. So because everybody has a perceived image of who you are, or how you show up. So the more that we can tell people who we are and how we serve and how we're different, the better that it's going to come across to everyone. So now the question is, how do we tell the story? So we kind of went to like, where does it show up? How do I get my ideas now? And where do we integrate it? So before I said we have the hero, the problem, the guide, and then the wins at the end. And so remember that your client is always going to want to be, or your target audience, they are the hero of the story. There's always that problem because our brains want to know the conflict, the risk. That's where like we kind of get looped in. And then you're the guide that comes along and helps them get to where they want to be. So how are you helping your clients? Like, what is the service you're providing them? How are you helping them to get to those results? And then at the end, there is that transformation. There's that result that they get. So we want to know that that's in there. And again, some things that, this is where we can go here. So as I mentioned before, you don't always have to tell the full part of the story. So when I go into emails to write something, or we're doing it on maybe a sales page, or if there is another piece of like social media ad copy, using things like this where imagine this happened, and you're kind of bringing them to a scenario of where something has happened, and maybe it's a real life situation that you've had happen, or maybe it's something that one of your clients. So starting with that and just telling a super simple snip of it and then bringing it into your main point. Or that note, that time when it's just another way to kind of get into seeing maybe where they're at on their journey. You're showing them like you understand who they are, where they're coming from, and where they want to be. Or like I said, a lot of mine have references to my kids. So it's like yesterday when my kids were doing this, then I can pull that into the story too. So one I just told the other day was like, my kids had to dress up. They had to dress up what they wanted to be when they got older. And both my husband and I own our own businesses. I'm a copywriter, which is like super hard to explain to a child. And my husband he has his own lawn care business. And one of my kids was like, well, I don't want to do what you and dad do. I want to be a real worker. And it was like, and I was like, well, what does that mean? But then the way that I could relate it back is that this is real work, but it looks more like freedom and flexibility, that I can still be there for them and take them to school and pick them up from school. And, I have the freedom around creating my own flexibility. So bringing it back into that, but just like funny things that clearly, they don't. It turns out he wanted to be a construction worker because that's a real worker, but So yes, just love just incorporating little fun things in there because it also gets them to know a little bit more about you and your personality and that. All right. And then, as I kind of mentioned before too, is knowing your client and the problem you solve. And this will help your storytelling get a lot easier too. And I know so many times you hear like, know your ideal client. Who's your ideal client avatar? And we come back to it time and time again. And there's a couple groups that I'm in, and it never hurts to go back and dive into who that is, because the more you talk to that one specific person, the stronger your copy is going to be, the more results you're going to get. Think about it. If you're making a big buying decision and likely you're sitting and you're scrolling on your phone or you're at the computer by yourself making a decision, you're not like sitting in a room full of people asking them if the right thing for you. You're typically by yourself. So naturally you want it to feel like it's talking directly to you. You don't want it to feel like it's talking to a whole bunch of people. So the more like personalized and connecting it can get to your people, the stronger it's going to be. And so by incorporating that story, by really knowing who they are, you can dive deep into that. And it doesn't mean you're going to leave anyone out, because people are still going to come to you if you're the right connected person to them. Just the other day, I had a client do this with her email, and she sat down like she was going to write an email. I said, just pick one person, write like you're writing to one person. You're writing to a friend. And this was a sales email. So it was going out to way more than just the one person she was writing. It was going out to hundreds of people. And so she did that. She sat down, she wrote it. She even chose a name. Obviously in the email when she sent it, didn't have that person's name. She got so many responses back. Like, wow, I needed this today. Thank you. Like, yes, I will be there. How do I show up? So it's like, you see how powerful it can be when, even though you're talking to one person, if those people.
Did one of her kids come and like unplug her computer? Hopefully she comes back shortly. Did you hear her say she has 4 kids?
Yes.
And I think they're 4 boys. She's a busy woman.
So someone probably did do that.
Right? I'm just thinking, my kids, Mom, I want your attention. Plug it. How are you guys feeling about this? Are you getting ideas? I'm sure you've heard a lot of this, but I always feel that it's so important to hear it again and kind of build that muscle of what we're learning.
I feel like, yeah, it's always important to know how to tell the story, and always good to like refine it. I think that we all know that we all respond to stories, but I think in terms of putting it into action for ourselves, for what we're trying to promote, it's more challenging.
100%. Yeah. And so just hearing this again and just hearing these little prompts, like she had those 3 things that you should be put here. She is.
You think she knows she paused? Oh, all right. There we go.
Yeah, I think she did.
I am so sorry. I got disconnected. I was like, ah,
That's okay.
right. Let's hope he doesn't do that again. Okay. I am sorry about that. So I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. I am back.
No worries. It gave us a chance to like chat about all the things that you're teaching us. So no worries at all.
Oh, perfect. Okay. I am not even quite sure where I was, but yes, just talking to that one person is important, and then going back to that problem that you solve. So I think that's just kind of number one when you're thinking about, okay, how do my stories relate to who my ideal client is? And just knowing then how does that also relate to what's the problem that you solve is going to be important. And then the last thing I'm going to share before we dive into examples is a big question too is like, how does storytelling change the conversion dynamic? So why is story so important when it comes to engagement? Some of these we already talked about before, but it keeps them engaged, and it connects with people. It connects on that emotional level, which people are going to make their decisions based on emotion. They're going to make those buying decisions based on emotion. And engagement is super important because, as you know, people's attention spans are short, and they are getting even shorter. So especially when it comes to like a social media post, or even your subject line on your emails, or the headline on your sales page, having those really like be super powerful. Like, think of those, your hooks and your headlines, as kind of the most powerful and important copy that you write, because you need that to automatically hook them and get them to keep reading. So I always focus on that. A lot of times people say like that they don't write their headlines first, or you start in the middle of the page and you go back up. I'm weird, I guess, when it comes to that, because my brain works is like I have to start at the top of the page and move to the bottom of the page. But how I write headlines is I write a whole bunch of them, because the deeper that you can get, like the more you keep writing, it allows me to like pick my favorite one or kind of combine some. It just gets stronger and stronger. So just writing powerful headlines, and they're results oriented. So always having your headlines be focused on the results that your client's going to get. Because when someone comes to your page or they're reading a post, the thing that's going to stop the scroll is like, what's in it for me? Everyone wants to know what's in it for me. And so having that just like clearly stated is super important. Story helps them feel seen, heard, and acknowledged. So like I said before, when you're making those big buying decisions, and I don't know what all of you do or what all of you, how you show up, but when it is those higher level packages or those high ticket offers, a lot of the times what's going to, get them to make that next step and get that purchase decision is for you to be connected to them. And you can do this with your messaging and your copy. So that's super important. And then it also, story shows them that you know what they're looking for, you know what they're saying they need help with, and what they're thinking. And story can do that, especially when it's a story. A lot of times, clients that I work with, it's their best position to serve the person they once were. So it's something that maybe they went through and now they're helping people get through it. Like, one of my clients is a holistic nutritionist. She had 6 autoimmune diseases, and she was at the point of like, she laid on her couch, she couldn't go to work, she like could not raise her kids, her husband was doing everything, and all the doctors just kept giving her more pills and saying she needed surgery and all of this, and it just, nothing was working. And so she dug in, found a way to naturally heal herself through food and through movement, and she's overcome all 6 of her autoimmune diseases, and now she's helping people do the same thing. So she's able to tell that story of where she was to where she is now, and that she can help them do the same thing. And a lot of times people are at that point where it's like, yes, her offers are higher ticket, but overcoming that price objection is all about, people have to want it badly enough. People have to know that you can provide those results. So the way that she tells her story, or the way that we share her transformation stories of the clients she's helped, it helps kind of connect with them, but also show like, she's the real deal. She knows what she is doing. She can help me solve my problems too. So it just helps you be relatable, but also know that you're revered. So you come out on the other side. And maybe you haven't experienced what you're helping people with, but your clients have seen that transformation. So that's where you can tell their story and not necessarily your story. Or if it's like big decisions, and that kind of comes into it too. So I have talked a lot. Before I move on to examples, does anyone have any questions? And I apologize, I am not in the chat because for some reason it went away on me and I can't find out where the chat is. So if somebody put something in the chat.
I think Jill has a question.
Okay, Jill, yes.
Hailey, I have a very similar experience to the client you just mentioned, so I'd be curious to see what their website is. Because I have 3 autoimmune diseases myself, and I kind of Not everyone can do it, to be fair, but I was able to basically, through diet and exercise, get myself to leading a very healthy life.
That's amazing.
So I'd love to, what was the name of your client first and foremost? Or website.
Kelly Calkins, and she might be one of the examples. No, she's not, but we can pull up her website too.
Okay. Great.
and-
And then, yeah, I didn't know, I know that Midori said that if people want to show their websites, they could do that. I don't know if that's at this part of the conversation or at the end of the conversation.
I'm just going to show a couple of examples of where we've incorporated story, and then I'll allow everybody to do that. And I'll just show like 2, since I know we're coming up on that half-hour mark. So then I have time to get through everybody's stuff. Does that work? Okay. Any other questions?
Nope,
Okay.
there's nothing else in here.
So, I'm just gonna go in and share some. I'm gonna see if this works. It might not, so I might just have to stop my share and okay. I'm gonna stop share, and then I'll just pull up my screen because it doesn't want to let me click on those links. So I'm just gonna share this. If you don't mind, hold on for 1 minute. Okay. And then I'll pull up hers as well.
I love I took a picture of the questions that you posted about.
Oh, perfect.
When you get your buyer, you'll get more buyers by knowing the problem you solve. It articulated it so easily. So thank you.
Love it. Thank you. Okay. So this one I really love. So this is for a woman that is selling a beauty product. I'm scrolling all the way down because there's a couple places we tell her story, and this is on a long form sales page. So we are telling her story here. In first, we're talking about like, here's the problems they're having. Here's what life can look like. And then how she's gone, like what she's gone through. So we include her story in the middle here. And it's basically like how she's relating to them and where she saw the need. And then way down at the bottom, what I like to do on my sales pages is have kind of a letter to your people, like read this before you go if you're still scrolling, because the people that make it all the way to the bottom of your sales page, like they're right on the cusp. They're super interested. So having a really like heartfelt letter to your people, I think is so, so, so powerful. And so just incorporating it with a picture, this one hasn't gone live yet. So she's still, working on the design, but incorporating some picture with it too. So it just makes it super easy for people to read. And then I would add more space in here, but making sure your text lines are only like 2 lines at most. Break it up a lot because it makes it easier for people to scroll. And then also bolding the things that you want people to see. Sometimes I say like, if you're scrolling your sales page, if people only read the bolded lines, they should still be able to get the gist of what you're selling and why it's for them. So just kind of think about that as like your bolding things. But this is, I think, a really powerful story. I won't sit here and read the whole thing to you, but it just kind of shows like, there was a time I was so desperate for feeling of enoughness that I consumed every injection and product. I even considered eyelid surgery to stop the overwhelming feeling of being close to my expiration date. Instead of feeling better, I felt worse. And then it goes into, it took a total breakdown. And so I set out to create this program. So this is where it went from who she was, that aha moment, and where she is and why people should join this program. So kind of like the autoimmune disease thing too. Then for this other one, this is a community. So we have story on both the homepage. I think I'm on the homepage here. Kind of in here, like we really connect, getting into what they're feeling. And this is for business owners that are working to grow and build and scale their business, and we want them to join the community. So we're kind of like getting into where they are and where they want to be, bringing in story there. And then also, again, this is who created. So we're telling just a tiny snippet of our story, but then they can go in to learn more on her about page and get her full story here. And then again, we have a sales page for people to actually join the community. So as I mentioned before, in the middle, we have, sorry, it's a long form sales page. So there's a lot here. So we have this, read this before you go. Again, just another letter to the people. And so these really help to convert because there's join buttons, as you'll see, spread throughout the page. So no matter where they are, they can say, yes, I want to buy. So those are the examples I wanted to share with you. I do have an example of how I tell story in email too that I can show, or we can just jump into what you guys want to have me review. What would you prefer?
We have about 20 minutes and
so maybe let's dive into what you guys want me to review for you. I think that way each person can have a little bit of time. Does that work?
perfect. I think that's great.
Okay.
So raise your hand if, oh, Stacy, I see ya. Hop on and we'll jump around.
So, do you want me to share my screen or, how are we doing this?
Either share your screen or just share the link in the chat, and because I have the chat now, so I can see the chat, and then I can pull it up too, whatever works best or
Stacey,
easiest.
if you can share your screen, I think that'll be good so everyone can see it and get a good idea.
I'm doing that now. So I'm just bringing up my website. I don't know if you want website or Instagram, which I
think I specialize more on like website and sales page rather than social. So
okay,
that might be more helpful for you.
There you go. Let's see. This is, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first page of my website.
Okay. Sorry, I was just going to ask before we dive in, can you just share more about you and who you're serving? And that will help me give some recommendations.
Okay, so I am, I'm obviously,
it's a hard question. I know, it's okay.
I mean, basically I'm an artist, a designer, and I hand paint teak hardwood boards, and I sell them for people who do charcuterie boards or serving boards or more of a gifting community. And I also serve women who are celebrating milestone birthdays through designing swag bags and information. Wait, you got me stumped. So yeah.
That's
Okay,
perfect. That's
no,
perfect.
I'm gonna jump in here. I'm going to jump in here really quick, Stacy and Hailey. So what Stacy does, she is from the Midwest, from where they make like cheese curds. And
oh my gosh, are you from Wisconsin?
I'm from Wisconsin, yes.
That's where I am.
Yay! Is that where you're at right now?
That's where I'm at right now. Yep, I'm in Chippewa Falls. So where are you?
Oh, I'm from Wausau.
Oh my gosh. And all my husband's family is from Wausau. Okay. We're only like an hour and a half from each other.
And I went to Stout, so.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Small
Small world.
Okay, so you're going to understand this, Hailey. So that's where she came from. She now lives in California. So the cheese that we have in California is a little bit, the whole concept behind it, right, is different because if you have cheese, you should always have a glass of wine with it too. That's how we think in California. So what's beautiful about Stacy is that she used to sit around the table for hours, right? Again, that Wisconsin kind of that more family oriented type of feel. And that's a huge part of her brand is that she spent hours sitting around the table. I remember her telling me that she came home one day or she went to her grandma's house, no matter what, if she had just had lunch, it didn't matter. You always sat around the table. You always had shared food and you sat for hours sharing stories. And so that's how she grew up. Fast forward, now she's in California, and a big part of her childhood was sitting around the table for hours, right? And enjoying it. And that's what she is bringing back to the world, is that sense of let's get back to the table, right? So she has these beautiful charcuterie boards that have the lazy Susan. So it's more of an experience. So whether you're out with friends, whether you're with your family, whatever it is, everything that she builds is around that experience of coming back to the table, sharing food, sharing laughter, creating memories. Does that make sense?
Yes, I love it. And I so resonate with that. So that's exciting. And I also love having cheese with a glass of wine. So
Well, in Wisconsin, it would be with a glass of beer, but
yes, exactly.
so, and I mean,
Yeah.
I like to say that I grew up in a cheese family because my family were cheesemakers. And then I moved to California, which is another cheese state. So it's a little bit cheesy that I'm making cheese boards. So
I love it. Okay, so first things first. So on your website, what I would do just like as we get here above the scroll. So I always want people when they come to the website, this above the scroll, like before you scroll, is the most important real estate on your website. So when somebody comes here, they should know who you serve, how you can help them, and how they can buy.
okay.
And I always say, so rather than having this scrolling thing, it's beautiful, but what we want, I would say, is a static image, and then you should have a results-oriented headline and subheadline, and then a call to action button.
Okay.
So even though you have your call to action button in the right-hand corner, I think that's important because you want them to shop. You can also have it right in the header too. And your header can say something about that experience, like let's get back to the table or something like that, where it's like, how do you help people? How do these boards, like think kind of below the surface level of like, what are these boards really doing for people? And I just challenge you to kind of dive deeper into who is that target audience that you're serving and how are you solving a problem? Even though sometimes it feels like if you're selling a product, it's hard to kind of dive deeper into that. But just how Midori explained it, like you're getting people to come together. You're building that community. You know what I mean? You're connecting people with friends and family and just back to like slowing down, because that's hard for us to do. So just thinking about having a results oriented headline and subheadline and a call to action right on your above the scroll, I think is going to be huge for you. And then you have a home and gift card at the top. Is there a way for you to add, or I guess you can keep scrolling a little bit.
So you want her to scroll down?
Sorry, yes,
One
Stacy,
page,
can you
yes.
scroll down a little?
Step by category.
Okay.
And then we tell what they're made, my Instagram, what I'm about.
Okay. So I would love to see, because again, you have such a great story, is a little more content, a little more copy on your website, just getting again back to the core of who you are, how you serve people, but more about when you're saying who you are and how you serve people, gearing it towards what's in it for that client. Like, why does that matter to them? And how your products can help them. So even if you had like your boards with a spin, hand painted, multifunctional, like if that was more towards the top, because it tells a little bit more about what these products are, why you made them, because a lot goes into these. Like you pour your heart and soul into these too. And then even having an about page where they can learn a little bit more about you. So I know you have that little about section, but if you turn a whole about page into just telling your story, people might resonate and connect more with you. And then want to purchase your product just because of that experience they had.
Yeah, I took that all out recently. I took that out. I did take out bringing us back together to connect as my tagline. And the reason is, and maybe it's different for service versus product base, is because people generally are shopping and looking with their eyes. They're not reading a lot. So I did take a lot of my script and information out. And then I also, I'm dyslexic. And so when I see lots of writing, I literally like tense up and don't want to read it. So that's why I do less is more in what I explained. So, Yeah, that's generally.
Definitely. And I think even with that, you can just have super simple short copy where it's like the headlines, the subheadlines, and that's really all you're having on this homepage. So people are still seeing what they want to buy and they're scrolling and they're shopping, but they're still getting that your personality behind it, the why behind it, the why they should want to buy it. Because again, it's just all about getting them to connect with you and connect with what you're selling. I just think about like a makeup that I just bought. I mean, the ads kept coming over and over and over again. So like it works to be more in front, but it was about like, I believed in what they did. It was organic. It was sustainable. It was super simple and easy to use. Like those are the things they called out, and it didn't take a lot of copy, but it took short snippets of like telling me who they are and how they serve and why I should buy it. So,
Okay.
hopefully that was helpful. Sorry, keep going.
That was awesome. Stacy, so for this is kind of we're going to jump to Sally, because I want to get everyone in. But the thing that I want us to be thinking about from a business standpoint is that when you have your story weaved in there, people are going to buy because they have especially if they're giving it as a gift or they want to talk about the product or the service, it's going to elevate what they're willing to pay for it. Number one, but also then they have a story to share. So I talk about it all the time, but I think there's so much value in sharing more about your story. Okay, Sally.
Okay, and
I
didn't mean to raise my hand like me next. I was just going to ask questions, but I think my website has the similar issues. So here, I'll bring it up real quick. Thank you so much. I think my website, yeah, might have the similar.
That's okay. It's all helpful to do this.
Okay. Okay, so this is mine. Same thing. It's got the scrolling. And so my question was, you said to put the static image, so under the menu, a static image, and then the headline, subheadline, call to action.
So no, so you can have it like you have it. So you can have the headline and subheadline right there in that
Oh, great.
the picture is. And it's okay if the screen is scrolling as long as it just doesn't distract from like the words and what people because again, they just want to know like what it is you do, how you can help them, and how they can buy as soon as they come onto your site, like within 3 seconds. I absolutely love that you have the bar with all those logos. Are those the people that you've helped serve, or
You mean the one, yeah, the scrolling logos? Those are all of our races.
I love it. That's just like a huge credibility booster. So I always say to people, like, if you've been featured in places or as seen on, or any big things that your audience would resonate, put those right at the top underneath that kind of hero section is what I call it, because that's a big credibility booster.
Okay.
So with yours, multi-sport experience racing, your next big finish starts here. Let's go. So that's good, but it doesn't exactly tell me what you do or who you are or how you can help me. So share with me more about what it is that you're doing.
Okay, so we produce races, running races, triathlons, and kids races, kids multi-sport races as well. So we welcome athletes of all levels, and that's really important to us. So maybe something about that, but we can accommodate athletes of all levels. In any given race, we have short distances all the way up to distances that take a half a day. So there's that. And I'm just talking about the racing piece of my business. That's fine. Let's just talk about that. But I don't have anywhere on here about us. Do you think it would be beneficial to talk about my experience as a triathlete, maybe, and then maybe have a page for my staff? I don't know. I've thought about adding that.
Yeah, definitely. So even back to this, your headline and subheadline, this kind of before the scroll. So do you help people organize their races and plan them and do all the things, or do you just go around and set up races
So I
and hope-
own all these. I organize, set up, put them on, et cetera, et cetera.
Wow,
We
that's
also do help other race directors put on races and time races. That's our timing services. That's under that item.
love it.
But
And
our
so do
bigger
you travel
businesses-
all over and do this, or do you specifically do it like in your area?
Right now, we're in St. Louis, Missouri, but we're possibly getting, I just had an offer to take over the Kansas City Triathlon, so we might be moving into Kansas City too. Yeah.
I love it. So I would just think about for your headline again, that results, like what are you creating for people, or how, like, what is it, that action that you want to take, and think about really that kind of problem you're solving and put that as your headline and subheadline.
Okay.
Because I
So
think
Multisport Experience Racing is the name of the company. MSE Racing Multisport Experience is what that MSE stands for. But maybe under that, you mean put a little bit more information, just a little bit more about that we welcome all levels and that type of thing.
yeah, so even I wouldn't even necessarily, I don't think you even need to have the name of your company right there, because you have it up in the logo at the top, or even if you put it the name underneath your logo, and then you kept that space there, that real estate there for your headline and subheadline.
Okay.
Because I think, again, that's what's going to hook people, draw them in, and make them want to keep scrolling. Because I think somewhere around is like 7 seconds that we have, not even, like maybe even 3 seconds now that we have people on our website for. So if they can find out what they need when they get to your site, or know that you can help them, that's where they're going to stay.
Okay, I love it. Thank you so much.
Yes, and I would definitely do an about section. I think that's
Okay.
important. Even like Midori said, just sharing your story in there, looping it in throughout. So,
Okay.
and you don't have to do 2. You can always do like what I do for people that have teams is at the top, we do a short little like about us, where it's the whole company that you're talking about. Then we do like the CEO or the founder, a little bit longer on them. And then there's like just a little section for each team member. And it can be super fun, where it's like, name, title, and then some fun things about them. Or
Okay.
and depending on like the level of like, we want it to be super professional and tied up, or we want it to be more fun, just depending your personality. So you could even do like biking things or triathlon things within there, but you could have it all on one page.
Okay, awesome. Oh, this is great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Next,
Okay.
Jill.
Yes, it's nice to meet you, and thank you for coming and talk to us. So I'm updating my website. So where I'm heading towards is more of like a well-being coach, and basically helping people with burnout, right? Targeting women 40 plus who just feel like everybody wants a piece of them, from every angle, whether you're a parent, whether you're taking care of your parents, you're working full time, you're dealing with your own health issues, saving for retirement, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm trying to rework my copy a bit. This is a little bit more fitness focused, and I'm switching this out, right? Because this is was about like working out, and I'm trying to make it more lifestyle oriented. So my company's called Go Long. And this is the homepage that I'm still tweaking. So let me know how you want me to guide you through this.
Definitely. So I think same thing I said with the others is your headline and subheadline and that call to action are like the most important. This is the most important real estate on your page.
Mhm.
So making sure that people know what it is you do and how you're going to help them. What's that transformation you're going to provide? And you can put that right in your headline.
Mhm.
So you can even talk about the burnout or the stress. But what I think is super helpful in a process that I do with my clients is I actually interview their clients.
Mhm.
So when I talk to their clients, I see what are they struggling with? How have they been helped? What has helped them to overcome? What's a dream scenario look like? That dream solution. And then I use their words to incorporate in things like the headlines. because a lot of times we want to try to like use our corporate speak or speak of like, you know, the more technical terms of what we're doing, but we just want to make it super simple, super clear, talk the way they're talking and have that in your copy because it's going to resonate with them. So for yours, where it's your life, go the distance. So I would just switch that out with a more like, do you do like coaching? Do you have specific programs?
So I have different programs down here, but, obviously I hear what you're saying. So, this is the next part of the website.
And I like that. So I do that too. So after you have your headline at the top, your headline, subheadline, your call to action button. So I would even add a button up at the top, but then I move into the struggles. Here's what people are struggling. You're really resonating with them there. And then you move into the possibilities, which I think you have that next. So again, just making sure these things are words that they're saying, things that they're feeling, using it in their words. So you're doing all the right things here. And then how it is that you're going to help them. So then keep going. So even in between those two sections, like do you need a program in our services, you could put in a little about me section where it tells just a snippet of your story. Like you don't need to tell the whole thing on the homepage, but just a super short snippet that shows like who you are and how you've overcome your stuff. And they can click on a learn more and go to your full about page. And then it just shows like, I'm positioned to serve you and here's what I'm offering you. And then you can go into your services. So I like that you have 3 different options there. And testimonials are so important. I always say sprinkle them everywhere throughout your website, on all of your pages. The more story that you can have, the better. And so definitely sprinkle those throughout. And then having that last call to action. So I would even have another call to action under those testimonials of how people can work with you. And so with your call to action buttons, I always think of like, what is the main goal that you want people to, what do you want people to do when they come to your website? Like that main action you want them to take. And
yeah, I tried to put in a call to action under the testimonials, and I think I have to do some custom code in Squarespace in order to make that happen.
gotcha.
But you just reinforcing that is that I have to figure that out.
Perfect. And I can send after this, I know we're coming up on time here, but I can send over just some examples of websites so you guys can see headline, subheadline, kind of what I'm talking about there. And maybe that'll help just spark some ideas for you. And Kristen, I didn't get to you, but if you have something, Midori has my email. She can email it to me and I'm happy to do a quick 5-minute Loom video to give you some feedback if you want. So
Do you have the website you said you were gonna
oh yes. I will put that in the chat right now so you have it.
Right. And thank you for your feedback.
Yes, thank you. I love doing this kind of stuff. So sorry, she just changed her thing. Okay.
But while you're looking that up, thank you so much. This was incredibly helpful. And it's great. I
Ooh.
love that you brought on other people's websites because we all learn from each other's examples, right? So thank you for sharing your sites and letting Hailey dive in and give you some feedback, because as I was looking at it, I'm like, oh, I can see this and I can see that. And it's, helpful for all of us. So Hailey, this was awesome. Thank you for spending some extra time with us and sharing your wisdom.
Well, thank you so much. I love it. Like I said, feel free to ask any questions. And Kristen, I want to make sure you get some love too. So I can, I'll do a quick Loom review if you want to send me something too. So happy to do that.
Kristen, she doesn't
perfect.
have.
You have it. Okay. So I have it up. So I will do that and I'll send it to Midori and she can forward it to you. Does that work?
Kristen, for some reason you're mute, but
I was going to
yes,
say,
we'll get that to you. Thank you, ladies, for hanging out with us, and I will see you all later. Thanks again, Kristen. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Oh, and so I'm going to email everyone Hailey's website if you want to get in touch with her. Also your email, It will also be, you guys know that I always keep the recording. It will be in our library where you can go in and find that information as well. So, and if anyone else wants that information quicker, just reach out to me and I will forward it to you immediately. So thank you again, Hailey. This was awesome. And I will see you all later. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks.
So
Bye-bye.
much.